Roger Stone went on trial this week. He, of course, is the president's longtime, many decades, political advisor, associate, one of history's legendary political villains, sort of self-made image, to be honest. He's now facing years in prison for charges of obstructing justice, witness tampering, as well as lying to Congress. And so far, just a few days in, it does not look great for Roger Stone. Covering this circus of a trial, former assistant U.S. attorney for the District of Columbia and an MSNBC legal analyst, Glenn Kirshner. Glenn, it's great to have you.
Good to be with you, Chris.
So, you've been watching the trial this week. Let's start at the sort of 30,000-foot view. Stone is being prosecuted for witness tampering and lying. What's the government's case, basically?
So the government's case is built largely on email traffic and text messages, written communications between Roger Stone and Randy Credico, or Roger Stone and Steve Bannon, for example. And basically what those written communications do is they squarely contradict and undercut the testimony that Roger Stone gave to the House Intel Committee. So as a former career prosecutor, I only wish I had evidence like this at my criminal trials. It's a little like shooting fish in a barrel.
Well, so the specific thing here, right, is everyone has sort of wondered about, did the Trump campaign have advanced knowledge of WikiLeaks, right? Did they know what WikiLeaks had? Were they planning around it? Were they in touch with them? And there's a lot of kind of like, I don't know what the right word is, like flirting between the two, or, you know, they're kind of in touch, and there's these intermediaries that Stone has where he's trying to get to Assange. So am I right that Stone basically tells Congress, I had nothing to do with WikiLeaks, and the government's case is like, no, here's what you were trying to do behind everyone's back?
Yeah, Chris, and if it went from flirting between the Trump campaign and Julian Assange and WikiLeaks after Steve Bannon's testimony, I think they are probably on the honeymoon at this point. They're beyond dating and beyond marriage. So here's what Steve Bannon gave everybody today, and I don't think anybody saw it coming. Steve Bannon testified, among other things, yes, I became the CEO of the Trump campaign in August of 2016. As CEO, I was basically the number one guy right below the candidate himself. I was in charge of operations. And then all of a sudden he was asked, you know, Roger Stone, and you had frequent conversations with Roger Stone about his access to WikiLeaks and Julian Assange. And all of a sudden, Bannon backed up and said, no, I don't know about that. The prosecutor said, really? Let's go to your grand jury transcript when you testified in the Mueller investigation. And then the prosecutor did what was textbook impeachment by a prior sworn statement. He took Bannon through his statement to the grand jury where he said, yes, I had frequent communication with Roger Stone about his access to Julian Assange and WikiLeaks. And then, Chris, the testimony moved forward a few minutes and everything was back on track. And then came the money question. That question was, did the Trump campaign have an access point? That was the term that was used. An access point to Julian Assange and WikiLeaks. And you would have thought Bannon would have learned his lesson by that little impeachment episode a few minutes earlier. But no, Bannon said, here was his answer. I don't think we had one. Let's go to the grand jury. Let's go to the grand jury transcript. Sure enough, Bannon testified to the Mueller grand jury, something that I don't think we had heard before. He said the Trump campaign's access point to Julian Assange and WikiLeaks was Roger Stone. Boy, that sort of brought those two things, the Trump campaign and Julian Assange, together in a way that I don't think we'd heard before.
So one of the things that happens in this trial is Roger Stone is kind of a notorious BS artist. I mean, almost, I think, by his own telling, he'd tell you that, right? Like, he says a lot of stuff and he's boastful. And there's been all these like very weird, lame lies that he keeps getting caught in. So this is at one point, he texts Randy Credico, prepare to die, right? And when he's asked about it by reporters, he tells Mother Jones that, like, he was actually telling him, like, no, get your affairs in order because you have terminal prostate cancer. And then Credico's like, I don't have terminal prostate cancer. And it just seems to me that Stone is like playing the role of a gangster, playing the role of like a mobbed up guy, but in a pretty half-hearted way that is not really fooling anyone. Is that a fair characterization?
I think that's a perfect characterization because at its core, he is on trial for lying to Congress. His defense to that charge is, oh, yeah, I'm a great big liar, but I lie to my friends and associates in my emails. I didn't really lie to Congress. You know, when you're on trial for lying, using the defense that you're a liar is probably not the strongest defense.
It's a great point. Although maybe the one honest thing Roger Stone has ever said. Glenn Kirshner, thank you so much for joining us. Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.